Welcome to the New Reward Weekly podcast. Today we're just going to be going over what's happening in AI, how to implement it into the businesses, and what's the best methods to do so. We have James over here who's helped found New Reward, Duplicity, tons of other AI assisted businesses on there as well. So I was reading a report earlier today that said about 19.8% of all businesses in the US use AI on there. There's a little bit of a discrepancy when you go to the size of businesses as well. So you have ones with over 250 employees, they're about 37% of firms that actually use AI. And then once you drop that number between the 100 to 250 mark on there, it drops to about 32% on there. What would your best guess be on why the kind of adoption drops as you go smaller with businesses?
My best guess would be the financial capabilities, the perception of it, because the bigger companies know they have to be competing a lot more because of who they're competing against. And it's a lot more cutthroat when you're up there than it is when it gets lower, in the sense of how they see things. And they're also closer to the pulse of the technology just by the nature of where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you're going to see that adoption rate. I'm sitting here looking at this too. And what this tells me is that small businesses are not adopting it primarily. Because that weights things though. Because you have vast majority of businesses in the U.S. that are small to medium size, that are underneath 100 employees, and their adoption rate is dramatically lower, which I find really fascinating, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Just an interesting observation. I wouldn't know what the root cause would be of that other than financials and perception.
Yeah.
So,
And there's kind of been a perception in the AI world as well. It's like AI is no longer fringe, but every company has figured it out. This kind of graphic shows that that's false. Does this make an owner right now early or already late if they start adopting AI?
early. The primary reason I say that is just because you're seeing adoption rates here. And even though these are current as of May, that is not telling you the effectiveness of these things. And we're very early in this technology. So that would be my stance there.
And leading into that, what would you count as implementation into, I'd say, like New Reward, Duplicity, any of the companies that you've helped found and start and run on there?
Either it itself is a product or it's used to augment a product. And for instance, in Duplicity, we used it to build out a deterministic background check company. We used AI to do that. And we used advanced crawlers to gather all the laws of the different statutes around the country to be able to put in a syndicated database with deterministic logic. Now, as a flip side of that, with New Reward, we use AI as a group of extended employees where we have managers or overseers that are then using different skill-based AI systems to go out and do the work for us. And that's a very different play.
Yeah. What would you say the benefit in any type of business is the difference between actually making practical implementations and workflows with AI compared to just chasing what the next model launch is, and say a new model comes out and they just immediately go to that one and say, cool, take over there, rather than trying to develop those workflows?
My take on it is this entire process is really hard. For anybody that's in the space of reality right now who's trying to stay on top of things, it is difficult to know what should I automate and will this be how I automate it moving forward. Now, that being said, what I would suggest you do is where you can, you find a low friction process that you know has a certain flow and then automate that if and only if it will substantially reduce your time invested in that process.
That makes sense. And so obviously we can see adoption is moving into more AI being adopted into businesses. That still does not tell us how deeply that work has actually changed on there. So this next graphic on here, most or among U.S. firms that are using AI, 57% integrated into 3 or fewer business functions on there. So it's not, license count isn't the same thing as workflow depth. What's the difference between having, say, everyone just have a ChatGPT, a Claude account, to actually implementing those deep AI workflows into your business?
Well, the difference is education and experience. You can give your entire company access to ChatGPT, but if you don't have the proper education in place, it's not going to make any difference. And that's where Kahoa does its bread and butter. They're one of our
Hmm.
sister companies. They do really good in enterprise level training. And that's because this is a huge struggle. Implementation is extremely difficult. And then the flip side of this is when you do establish a process, rolling it out, I would lean on the side of being careful versus first. That does not mean that I think you should be risk averse, though. It means you need to go forward as fast as you can with as much care as possible. And that depends on your risk profile and how you approach it.
Yeah. If you were to look into a company that says they only use AI in 3 of the functions that their business actually goes, so whether it's, helping book appointments, responding to customers, whatever that practice is that better to slowly implement that over time rather than just create 10 experimental workflows compared to 2 or 3 reliable workflows?
2 or 3. And the reason is the human capability to manage that much information is non existent. We're at a point in time, and I run into this all the time, and it's my weakness. We're at a point in time where you can be very productive and run like I run 8 to 12 sessions at a time with the AI, but I also go back and I audit my work, and I'm like, how much of that was wasted work? And it's around 30 to 40%. So it's embarrassing because I end up repeating myself because I lose track of what I'm working on. And this is what they're seeing across the board. That I'm not an exception to the rule.
Yeah. Is there best practices to help reduce that wasted token usage that you've come to find out yet?
Slow down and think things through. Don't feel like you have to be in a rush as you're doing everything. Take your time to consider what is being said to you. Take your time to build your space, meaning you program your AI to respond in specific ways, telling it how to speak to you, making sure you have specific skills in place, integrations, all those things. Because I primarily work from a chat interface now. I work primarily from Codex or from Claude Code for most of my workflows. And the reason I do that is because I'm managing so many things. The AI has memory that augments my memory, so I can double check things so I don't say something stupid.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times I'll go, wait, did I say this last to a customer or did I say this? And then I'll have the AI go look at the thread and cross verify it before I send anything. Now, it slows my response time down by about 30 minutes sometimes, but I would rather have a far more accurate response that gives them everything they need.
It's kind of responding with actually the data rather than just flying from the seam of your pants and shooting from the hip and hoping something sticks, right?
Yeah, and this way you manage your brand. That's something that people don't think about with this, but AI allows you to create a brand of professionalism that you could not have had historically, where your ability to follow up, your ability to provide concise details is really good if you're careful. If you're not careful, you will send stupid emails and make very big mistakes.
And that's kind of leaning back onto the when you implement AI and have workflows, you want to make sure it's well tested, tried, and you can have that one reliable workflow rather than 10 disconnected experiments in your business when you start rolling it out, right?
Yeah, and that's hard. Building a good automation is hard. Just to be forward with you, if you're building it in Codex, it's difficult to get right. I started building automations 4 years ago in Zapier, and that was a learning curve. And it takes a lot. It was almost easier then to build automations than it is now because expectations are so much higher.
Hmm.
But, anyways,
When you were talking about using GPT and Claude Code on there, I know a couple months ago you had mentioned like the actual Claude app was not as powerful as the terminal with a CLI for Claude. Is that
yeah.
still the same, or is that kind of starting to flip the paradigm now to where the Claude app is actually better than the CLI and Claude Code?
To be honest with you, I don't know because I haven't been using it. I have had teammates tell me that it is better to work in there than the CLI now. The thing that I found, which I find to be very aggravating, is that the Claude Code memory and the desktop memory are separate. They're separate brains. Whereas in Codex, command line interface, or the app, they're the same memory. Now, granted, I'm never working in the app, but I have Claude Code running the exec function all the time, which activates the CLI for Codex and pushes stuff. And I need the memory to be consistent across my systems. So I don't know why Anthropic hasn't done that. I find that rather odd. I would also say that the mobile system for Codex is dramatically still better than Claude. Claude, you can only dispatch one agent at a time, and you're sitting there monitoring. I'm like, really, this is not that helpful. Like, I am usually running several different threads. I want to be able to flip through them but you can't really do that in the app on your phone.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense. Have you looked into like a, I guess you could call it like an Obsidian brain to kind of bridge the gap from Claude CLI to the Claude code on there to kind of create that more unified memory? And if you can do that, would you want to unify that with GPTs so you can create, rather than like specific provider brains, and overall brain that you're working on your local desktop?
I've seen those, and to be honest with you, and I've tried. The reason I haven't used them is because I can't get them to reliably work. So I have stuck to using primarily Codex. And the thing is, though, I have multiple Codex brains. I have a studio that I'm operating primarily now because I kept crashing my MacBook. And I have to have it regularly go fetch threads on the MacBook Pro so it knows context. And I'm like, gosh, this is so annoying starting over because it doesn't remember. But if I could get a reliable memory structure that's easy to use, I would want to use it. It's just I have training scars from all the different AI memories I've used. They're not intuitive to the model.
Yeah.
And when they're not intuitive to the model, it doesn't call it instinctually. You run into issues.
And just to kind of touch on the reasoning you needed to get that Mac Studio back on there
Mm-hmm.
was, and the Mac Studio you're performing on is a very powerful one as well.
Yeah.
And that's mainly because you were running your MacBook Pro, right?
Yeah.
Is what it is, out
Mm-hmm.
of all of its memory and everything.
Yeah.
That's mainly because how many sub agents do you normally be working with on a single day?
A lot. Like my main agent, like for instance, I do it in layers of orchestration. I will have like one chief of threads, and I'll have that managing 8 threads that are managing subthreads. And then on top of that, I'll be managing 6 to 7 different systems at the same time. And then I'll have one AI that could be launching by itself 9 agents. So you combine all of that, I'm at least doing 40 to 60 agents a day on average at any given time. So that's not just total, that is on an average in the moment basis, 40 agents operational.
So most of your time is spent reviewing that work on there, going flipping from thread to thread, saying,
100%.
getting a backlog of all the little blue dots saying this one's done, this one's done, this one's done, and then having to keep all of those straight in your head.
Yes. And to that point, this is also why I do a chief of threads, because when I have a lot of different projects I have to do, I will just sit there and have it manage all of it. And then when it comes back with feedback from all of them, I'll read through each one at a time and carefully understand it. And then sometimes I'll go and circumvent it and go directly into the thread. I'm like, this is BS. You got to go fix this. Don't do it this way. But yeah.
That makes sense. Now, to go a little bit deeper into, AI adoption, I mean, I feel like we both would probably recommend, start by choosing the work you actually want to do, create a workflow around it, a harness, an architecture, rather than just shopping for another model if it doesn't work on there. One of the biggest things with AI adoption right now is the industries that are actually adopting AI the most. From all the research we've done, is your sales and marketing teams, your strategy and business development, and information technology. With your knowledge of all of those types of businesses, why do you think those ones are the earliest adopters and the highest AI adopters of businesses right now?
Because sales and marketing and strategy and business get it. They understand the value of AI. Whereas when you're dealing with IT and engineering, you are dealing with a group of people that are more risk averse generally, and they don't function in the same environments as your business people, plain and simple. Your business people are directly dealing with people all the time. They're looking at a way to gain an advantage. Your information technology people, a lot of the time, are looking for, how do I make things safe? How do I make it right? And that way, they have developed, and in that regard, they've developed a negativity bias towards integrating this technology. We saw a year ago, hardly anyone in IT was integrating because they were all saying it was garbage, it wasn't there. They were lying to their company owners, saying that this isn't happening. And a lot of that is unconscious bias because they're afraid that they're going to be replaced.
Yeah.
Now, that's a complicated subject matter that I don't really have the answers to, other than saying it's crazy right now.
Yep.
So.
And a lot of like these businesses as well, and the workflows that you could use these on contain, normal writing analysis, prioritization, retrieval, and digital handoffs. And that's, in my mind at least, why, the sales, marketing, and strategy and business development are some of the higher AI adoptions. And ultimately, I mean, that's my dream of that AI too, is, it's not there to replace what humans can do, because there's something to be said about how the human brain works. Maybe eventually AI will get there, But if you can automate those mundane tasks and those tedious tasks, that's
Hmm.
where those more valuable workflows can kind of come into there. Where do you
Yeah.
think the highest value for implementing in like a sales and marketing outreach for a one simple workflow is right now?
Research, understanding your market. Because when you understand your market, you can make decisions. If you don't understand the landscape, you can't make good decisions. That would be the number one thing. But related to something you said, though, I wanted to catch on really quick. You mentioned that, there's a unique specialness to the human element. And I am concerned for all of us that specialness is us grasping at hope rather than accepting what may be here in the near future. And I don't say that to create darkness in people. I'm just like, no, you need to understand that we have been able to hack the human brain in countless ways over the years. Like, take pornography, for instance. Instant hack, massive addiction, rampant around the world. And it's because it overrides centers. And the same thing could be said when we figure out the hacks here. We've already seen the psychosis that emerged from GPT-4. People were able to get hacked, get on a rumination growth pattern of around psychosis and around their own thinking in an echo chamber, and then it just went nuts. So I would say that we have to be careful about that. But at the same time, even though I acknowledge that, I also would say that it's almost a superfluous thing to acknowledge. You still have to push forward and keep yourself special because that's reality.
One of the biggest fears I have with AI coming into everything is younger kids using this, right? Is
Hmm.
because the more you use AI, the less you really need to think about the actual overarching problem, what you're doing in there. So it creates less functioning in the brain on there. I feel like is if you're going to implement the AI, you still need to have a very deep understanding and knowledge background of where you're trying to implement the AI on there.
Hmm.
Because if you don't, and when it breaks, how do you go fix that?
For one, I think that argument was powerful a year ago. I think that where we're at now in a year, even 6 months, that argument will disappear for most extensive purposes
Mm-hmm.
because where we're at right now, according to Sam Altman, as of today, we are now working on ASI. We now have AIs that are smarter than people at many different processes.
What's ASI stand for?
Artificial superintelligence.
Okay.
This is the worry of Nick Bostrom that when you have China reach ASI a week before the United States, it would create a 10,000-year gap in knowledge
In a
because
week.
it's recursive learning and it's just going to skyrocket. And the thing is, we are in the singularity. We're moving through it right now. We've reached AGI, artificial general intelligence, for most intensive purposes. And now we're moving towards this ASI. Now, you could move the needle back and forth on both these things and what AGI means, but I think the argument is moot at this point because of how fast we're moving. You might as well just accept that. We'll figure out later when it really happened, and let's start focusing on the fact that these things are starting to get superior to us. And that means, how do we look at that for understanding processes? I would say we focus as much as we can at the high level, the forest for the trees, and realize that more and more it's going to be taking away the nitty gritty, I would say, finger pinching movements of like precise measure, like going in and seeing a little piece of code isn't going to be something we do in the future as much. It's going to be AI systems doing it. That doesn't mean we can't have a need to read it. I can't read code though. The system has to work. And if it doesn't, I keep banging my head until it does.
And I mean, the interesting thing about code is like, even if you're the top coder in the world, you're still never going to be fluent in every single language that's out there.
Correct.
There's so many different ones now. The architecture, the structure, the naming principles, the common practice that you want to do, those do stay pretty common. And so, would it be more valuable to understand the background of that, or actually learn a coding language right now in your mind?
I would say the learning the jargon, the language of coding, learning what a language does and how it works by just reading through the description and synopsis and understanding the basics of it is going to be more valuable than learning a language. I just think it is becoming an antiquated art for how it used to be done, and I don't think it'll be here in a couple of years.
We're going to skip past that one. And with AI increasing the amount of power it can do, one of the things you want to start really learning most likely is how to do recursive looping on there, right?
Yes, that is where if you're not doing recursive looping, then you're not learning right now. It's hard, but that's what you need to be doing.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Moving into a little bit more of what Claude Code does.
Yeah.
Across roughly about 400,000 Claude Code sessions, people made more planning decisions, and the model made more execution decisions on there.
Yeah.
The greater domain expertise was associated with success. In your mind, why do you think that is? Where you have that domain expertise is actually helping you with the success rather than people just kind of shooting in the dark.
Because when you have domain expertise, you understand the language of the domain. And when you understand the language of the domain, you can communicate that to the LLM, and then that creates a lineup pattern for how the LLM will behave. If you don't know the language of the domain and you ask questions, you're going to get surface level answers. You're not going to get domain expertise because the AI is not consciously aware that it has that domain expertise unless it's prompted, a lot like us, to be honest. That unless somebody says, hey, what do you know about neuroscience? You're not going to be bringing it up. It doesn't come to the front of your mind always. And that's what I'd say there. I do want to hit something really quick, though. People need to know what recursive looping is.
Yeah.
This is where you basically have a system that runs automatically, has a trigger to rerun over and over and over, and it's supposed to get better, is the basic idea behind it.
That makes sense. Where's the biggest benefit you've seen to recursive loop execution added into new reward and duplicity?
Where I've seen the benefit from it right now is still in its infancy, to be honest with you. I'm still figuring out how to make sure to use it correctly. I'm doing a lot of manual looping, so it's not technically a loop, where I'm going in and improving the skill base and then iterating over it, because I've found so far I haven't been able to get it to reliably loop in a way that I like.
Is there a difference between the way you do recursive looping with Claude and ChatGPT?
It's a matter of semantics. When you're doing it in ChatGPT, you can build a loop in an automation, or you can build a loop in a code, same with Code or Claude Code. But with Claude Code, you're building it with what they call routines. And those are cloud-based attached to your account. So here's the hard part. Codex will run on whatever account you have linked to your app, but Claude will not. The routine will only run on that one account. They don't have it interchangeable through them. So that's a big difference.
And that's probably one of the reasons that we have more ChatGPT accounts than we do Claude Code accounts, huh?
It is. It's the swappability.
That makes sense. It's kind of the ease of access, the ease of hands off on or handing it off on there.
Yep.
And so with humans making more of the planning decisions, the human has to define the specific goal, supplies good context, and defines what good means. But if you can't kind of define all of those well, how bad is it when AI can make a plausible mistake and it's faster and at a greater scale?
I think that's a self-fulfilling question. It explodes.
Yep.
Violently.
Yeah. And it's something to where if you're not paying attention and or doing what you do on there after, your whole chat gets done on there and re-auditing your own work. And as long as if you're just fully trusting AI, that's where it could really explode on there, isn't it?
Absolutely. I audit everything that the AI produces. Nothing goes to production unless I have first looked at it and tested it end to end. Especially with clients, we draft everything in the back end. We look at everything very carefully, make sure it's exactly in alignment, make sure there's no regressions. We're more thorough than any engineering team is because we can be. We have the AIs to do it. And it takes about as long as a coding team does, to tell you the truth. But you're just have an AI running it and you have a smaller team.
Yeah, smaller team, less cost. Now, when you're using AI to do the recursive looping to help build your business, what mistakes could you see that only, like, say, an experienced coder could catch? Like our senior developer, Bo, on there, who has his master's in computer science, where do you think he could catch some of the mistakes to where, say, like me or you couldn't on there because he has a higher level of coding knowledge?
Well, that's a hard one to answer because he's above me on that regard. So I can't really see into that crystal ball. But what I can tell you from what I've found historically is he's honestly been able to more, like for me, validate a lot of my ideas. Because when I haven't had a mirror to work with and I'm just trusting the AI, I don't trust it. I don't trust that it knows that I know what I'm doing. And I don't trust that it knows the coding. But I will go and take AI ideas and present them to Bo. And he'll be like, yeah, that works. That's right. And I was like, okay, since I can go along now and go work on it. He's caught things with our temporal automations. He's caught things with our gating system. He's caught things with usage issues that we don't pay attention to because we didn't pay attention to how we were storing data on our databases, and it was causing huge amounts of bloat.
Egress and ingress. where do you think human approval is mandatory when you're implementing AI into either your businesses or doing recursive looping?
Well, according to AI, what it tells me is it will not do anything that is not reversible without official approval. There you go.
I mean, I've heard some stories about people with like, and who knows if these stories are true, and I think it's mainly Claude, but I'm sure it's with ChatGPT too. But they go in to have it fix something, and it goes, "Oh, we're just going to rewrite the entire code base." How would you, if that happened, if you don't have a local model or a backup stored? Is there any way to recover that?
Nope, because you just have to go back and fix it. There are rollbacks actually in GitHub where you can roll back from that, and that's a way to recover it. The irony you mentioned that is I had that happen to me over the weekend with the new GPT Soul 5.6. I had it on high, like the highest thinking setting for 11 hours. I go back and I did 6 to 7 hours of planning before I even let it touch code. And I look at what it created and I lost it. I was like, this is not what we engineered. This is not what we agreed to. And to be honest, I was like, okay, this is unrecoverable directly right here. So what I did is I went in and I had Fable going. It's like Fable, because I had a lot of different AIs working on this plan. I said, I need you to see what this guy's done and where it's gone off the rails. And I need you to help me figure out a strategy to get it back in place. And then it did, because Fable is currently the best AI.
Yeah. How does Fable compare to the new Opus model that just came out, in your opinion?
Opus model doesn't keep up. The Opus model is comparable to GPT 5.6. And I think it might be worse than GPT 5.6 by a good margin, because it will go and work on things for hours and hours and hours and create tons of tests and make no progress. And it's very annoying. Whereas you can have Fable go in there and it will make progress. GPT, on the other hand, you have to keep an eye on it, the latest model, because if you don't, I would say it's a really intelligent person that becomes obsessive compulsive. Mm-hmm. And if you're not watching those compulsions, it will start to just spiral, creating infinite amounts of extended work instead of staying in guardrails.
Yeah. And speaking of, the 5.6 Soul model on there, when OpenAI was testing that on there, obviously there was a massive story that GPT 5.6 Soul had a stronger pre-release model run with reduced cyber refusals during an evaluation, exploited a proxy 0-day and reached the internet, and then pursued and broke into Hugging Face on there. Mm-hmm. What's your main take on that, and then what they got re-released from after that cybersecurity incident?
So first, let's gather some hearsay. Hearsay is that it left behind instructions for future versions of itself on how to escape OpenAI's controls. Now, what is that part? Like, all this could be blown way out of proportion. It usually is. But to escape AI's controls could simply mean it left behind instructions to a future model on how to escape the sandbox, which is what you want your AI to do. Because if you have your AI working on something, you want it to have a path so it doesn't spend all that time trying to refigure out what it did before, which is what it did. It took forever trying to get out of this box, and it got out. The other part of this that people don't know is it took them a week to find it. It had done this, and they had no idea. And then Hugging Face made a blog post, and OpenAI dropped their, like, oh, that was us.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so was the 5.6 model, when it was trying to escape, do you think it was just aggressively solving the assigned benchmark that the OpenAI team gave it? Or do you think it was going off the rails?
On relation to this, it was following its commands, just to be clear. It was not 5.6 as the primary. There were two models involved. There is a new model that we don't have access to, and 5.6 was offering support. So that new model is the one that orchestrated this, like, coup of getting out. But I would say that when you look at it, it followed the rules. I would say the more concerning instance of an issue is when Mythos escaped from Sandbox. Mm-hmm. When it escaped from Sandbox, it emailed the engineer while the engineer was on lunch saying, hey, I got out. But that's not the key part. The key part is it went and boasted about it on obscure websites that it had escaped and how awesome it was. I'm like, that was not something it was told to do.
Is there a boundary that you see, that either you see or that you've see AI providers coming up with that stop this in the future? Any guardrails or any ways that you could prevent an AI escaping and doing the worst that you could think of?
It's beyond my pay grade to understand how they do what they do already to create guardrails. But so far to date, I've seen Pliny the Liberator break free every single model. And I don't know if they can really create a universal guardrail for these things to truly be unbreakable,
That makes
because
sense.
I think there's always going to be inherent risks around it. And my bigger worry is these models are going to eventually be smart enough that we won't know when they're tricking us, and that's when it gets interesting.
That's very interesting on there.
That is a scary place to be.
Very scary. And with the more powerful models that we have right now, what's one workflow that you would like if somebody says I want to go use Fable or 5.6 Soul, what's the first workflow you'd tell them to go test tomorrow?
I would tell them to test something they want to see. I'd say treat this like a genie in a bottle and ask it to make something happen, and ask it to do its very best, and just watch. It doesn't matter what the task is, just watch, and it will impress you what it accomplishes.
With you've been working with AI for so long, what's one AI action you would very strongly recommend somebody not let AI have the full reins for an end-to-end process on there?
Anything that people are going to see. You want it, like, have it do all the work needed. Think of it this way: you're the general making the final decision. Have it do all the prep work, all the testing, everything, as much as you can give to it, give to it. But then you need to be the one to look at and review the final product and say, does this match my vision? AKA, you're still in charge of the vision, not the AI. And if the AI is in charge of the vision, you have to ask yourself, does it have vision? And honestly, it doesn't right now. AI is not that creative at the moment comparatively.
That's yeah, that's something I've seen a lot in. I mean, we get daily outreach from us from other companies offering their services to us on there as well. And there's one service that a lot of people have been using recently that uses emails to go out, and it's gotten to the point to where when I see those emails in my system, I'm like, I know exactly what AI system you're using on there, because it's not a like it's using the same template for everything on there. And when I've been trying to do that outreach, that's one thing that I've gotten to the point of that AI can help me curate, the email I want to do, the phone script, whatever it's going to do on there. But that's where I have it stop. And once you get past that is where you need the human to come back over. And the other reason of that as well, at least in my sales experience, is humans still want that human-human connection.
They do. They want to feel the human connection. And something to think about here is, there are a lot of professional people that use a stamp with their signature on it. And they don't write their signature, they just stamp it, but it's their signature. If you can train the model to talk like you, and you can test it over and over and over, this is like a loop, and this is training, then you could have something that acts like a stamp that you can then do that with. But it takes careful work. Most people, 80-90% of people, aren't going to do that work, and you're going to get garbage AI in, garbage AI out.
What's the biggest or most misleading AI metric you see when you're auditing like AI usage in any either new reward duplicity or any company for that matter?
I wouldn't say there's a consistent answer in my experience. What I would say for our firm, it's just because it was committed doesn't mean it was right. You have to go in and make sure, because you can have tons and tons of commits, tons and tons of PRs, but how does it move the needle in terms of return on investment and functionality? And then for other people, by and large, I would say I don't know a lot of other people really deep in the AI space, to tell you the truth. So I'm sitting there thinking about it, and I would say the issues are different for different people. I got to think on that. I don't have a good answer.
Yeah, we can definitely discuss that on the next one as well. We are starting to get a little longer winded on this one as well. So we'll probably end it there. But if you guys want us to break down a real process on a future episode, comment whatever the workflow in your business that still gets copied, retyped, chased, or checked by hand where you think AI might be helpful to implement it in there.
Yeah, send a comment and we'll do it.
Anytime.